place.
Is this
Ah,
your winter trip?
yes.
I know you mentioned before, but how long is this winter trip? Is this 3 months? Is this a whole season of winter?
Last winter, my snowbird adventure was from November till August. I am not a cold weather person, and I'm just so happy and grateful that I have a very generous friend who enjoys my company and companionship and skill set in a way that I am able to be down here a lot. Let me adjust my tiara.
I love that. And I love that. I'm guessing it's because your career and your job and your lifestyle allows you to do so.
Well, it's funny. Maybe we've talked about this that when I started coaching 10 years ago, I decided, well, this was way more recent, like the last 5 years, as I want the life and the lifestyle to be a working vacation. That is what I'm looking for. And so to me, that feels like you're vacationing, but you always make work a priority. And that feels like, uh huh, yes,
I love how
that
you just
works.
made it happen. I personally have thought that I really wanted to travel and experience the world. And well, with the clinic, it feels that I've put some roots down, and I think I'm going to bypass it slightly, maybe, but you might inspire me as well differently. Is I want to be so good that I could travel the world, and one of the mechanisms and mission statements of House of Ikigai is change the landscape of aesthetic medicine away from mindless injecting of body parts, areas of treatments, and mils of filler into a more holistic, more empowering sense of that you are good enough, and all we're doing it is aligning people to the best version of themselves.
Yes.
So that's one of the things. But I feel as if it may be an uphill battle because it's a little bit too woo. The industry wants to learn injection techniques, and
Oh,
yeah, so I'm very against. When I say against that, it's very opposing to my ideals and thoughts. So I might jump on the coaching bandwagon.
I think you're on the coaching bandwagon. I think you're the leader of the band. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, from your perspective, right? The industry standard, like, what is the bigger objective? And naturally, it's probably making money. And so, where can we get people's real pain points and like create that suffering? Like, you're not good enough. You're not worthy. Look at your jowls. So, and yeah, you've got a different message, which is just aligning the greatest version of you.
So after multiple conversations with you, I'm like, maybe I should. Maybe I'm going to do a cheeky wee sidestep. I could still do 60% of what my career has up and down kind of segued and forked into, and stepping into the sense of well-being and because it's the same thing. It's just
It's
presented
all
to
the
a different
same.
audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I want to get right in there and ask you how your retreat was. I saw a few posts.
Oh, and then I want to ask you how your cadaver destruction in Italy was. Is that where you were
I
doing?
was. Should
I
I go?
mean, I knew you were in Italy, but is that what you were doing in Italy?
It was. Should I go first?
Yes.
It sounds a bit. It always goes ethereal, esoteric when it comes to Kev. So I ended up waking up at like 2 or 3 o'clock and flying to Frankfurt, and then ending up in Verona in Italy. It's the first time I've been to Verona, and it sounds spectacular in all sorts. I was a little bit very studious and putting my geeky hat on, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to get some good rest, have dinner, sleep well, and squeeze as much juice out of the learning the next day. And in terms of the networking and people type of vibe, these are doctors, dentists, and nurses. Some people that I Instagram famous and all sorts. And I had a little bit of, or maybe I should partake in the network and have fun. And I did that at the dinner time. But after a while, I did think I need to have my healthy boundaries. That they were going to go out drinkies and all sorts.
Sure.
And for me, I felt I stepped into a very Kev self, as in I really am excited to learn as much as I can. I love you loads, and we could catch up afterwards. And people had a little bit of resistance at first, messaging me saying, "Oh, give this another go. Let's go to a party or let's go drinkies upstairs." And then I think with a little bit more healthy boundaries, I'm like, I really want to make the best out of this trip because this is what it's for. And people respected that afterwards, which was really nice because in my previous people pleasing self, I would have just bobbed along and been quite quiet because I'm
And
probably
maybe a little bit resentful.
probably most likely to be honest with you, but probably a bit of it was probably just tiredness, having travelled quite a fair bit, and yeah, probably pre-resentful, as in I know that I'm not going to get the most out of my trip and my learning because of this, whilst being in the moment. And so that was point number one about the networking aspect. And then point number two, I've experienced cadaver work maybe 3 times in my life. Once
I
in
like cadaver work. When you put it in air quotes, it was like when I've killed people. It sounds like
it is.
cadaver work. Like, yes, no, I'm sure it was totally scientific.
Because a few people did say like that the rep who invited me over, who is not medical, said, "How's your cadaver?" And I did feel that there was a lack of respect. It was like, "Enjoy your cadaver day." I'm like, these people were like real life people once upon a time. These, and that was probably the theme of second day, which is like the cadaver work day. And we got scrubbed up or suited and booted in blue gowns and all sorts. And there were 6 heads and one master head. And I did find it a little bit eerie, not the the heads themselves, but the interactions of people with them. They weren't taking selfies with the heads, but they were taking selfies in the room. And just something about me, maybe I'm just hypersensitive, I just felt as if there was this, where's the respect? Like someone's donated themselves, their face, their identity somewhat, to the medical research and medical learnings. And I don't know if I'm just angry and frustrated at other people's, my perception of disrespect. But on the flip side of it, I did feel quite relieved in a observant, esoteric way, which is at the end of the day, when we're dead, people don't really give a shit. So I learned things from both angles, my emotions, and then observing my emotions. I'm like, at the end of the day, we're all meat and flesh, whether it be alive or dead, and that's it. So there was another deeper feeling and learning from that, which is it almost none of it really matters, and we're all pink inside, and we're all a little bit like an animal. Because it did when you start slicing and dicing. You're like, oh, it looks exactly like chicken and beef. So, so very, very vague, but very, very poignant and very, very impactful learnings. And what I had written some notes what I wanted to share with you. It's the highlighting of death is punctuation and an underscore and underlining of the importance of life. So those are my biggest learnings.
Wow. So what does that mean for you now that you've got the biggest learnings from this experience? How
Thank
does that
you.
change your perception?
And then on my way back from Verona, I went to London, and whenever I'm in any different situations, I explore different things. Whether at the gym, and there was like yoga class, and I went to a yoga class, and they were talking about body and self, and it all linked up together. Do you find that once you learn something, you start like this RAS, reticular
Yep.
activating, you start
Activating
seeing it in
system.
everything?
Yep.
And in this yoga class, this person had mentioned, what if you lived life like an experiment? So with experiments, You explore things because you've never ever been in a situation before with your mind, with your heart, with your spirit, with your story, with your narrative, and all the different variables as of now. An experiment should never have judgment. You don't expect for something to happen. You do it, you take a pause, you observe it, you collect data, you make conclusions, and you experiment again. So the cadaver learnings, as in we're all flesh at the end of the day and all pink inside, alongside life is an experiment, it gave me a real sense of non-judgment. It really further dissolved the sense in, of significance. And it sounds really sad to say that nothing matters. Well, in the sense of nothing matters, we can get rid of stories that no longer serve us.
Yes. Like, why am I holding on to this?
What? Yeah, exactly. We'll be gone one day. This too shall pass. And that's the biggest learning. And what are the actions that I'm going to take? Is do it with grace, do it with purpose, but without judgment. And alongside this experiment thing, I need to caveat a brackets parenthesis that they did mention with containment. And what that meant was imagine a, a river. It tosses and turns, it does all the miraculous things that a river does, but also has banks. So it's not as if it's going to flood everywhere and gush everywhere, but it flows and meanders and does what it needs to do, but it has containment. And what that means to me is have that respect of yourself, of other people, legally, and all your identity, characteristics, and values as a containment. But with that in mind, experiment life without judgment and needing for it to be a certain thing or a certain way of a certain outcome. That in itself allows me to action more
Wow.
kindly.
That's interesting because this is not what you were communicating, but the river idea is the difference between fate and free will. And I feel like we sometimes feel like, I don't know, what's the balance? What's the balance? And I feel like the river analogy is nice because it's going to carve its own way, but it's still a river and it's still going downhill. Or it's, I don't know.
Going to
That
see.
we're all given a skill set and it's totally up to you what you do with it.
And then
That
I've been
didn't.
experiencing death in personal life as well. So it all ties together. And it sounds as if I'm very judgy of other people, and maybe I am. And I've also considered that comparison, people say, is a thief of joy. I also believe there is a good in that. Comparison gives us context and relative understanding of things. If there's
Mm.
no this compared to that, then there's almost nothing. If there's no good, then there's no bad. If there's no black, there's no white. If there's no dark, there's no light. And I bring that in mind on my own my reflections, that it feels as if I'm really judgy. Like I'm judging of this group of people, and then even family members, how they interact and engage with death or dying, and it feels automatically close enough to 99.9% of people bring it back to significance and narrative. It's about them. It's not about the dying of the deceased, which I find really fascinating and once again disrespectful. Um, so I'd love to hear your views on that, because we said that we sprinkled the idea that I'd love to hear about faith and God or religion in regards to very, very large topics in regards to life and death.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me just give you my 30-second summary of life and death and faith and humanity. That's funny. Wait, but I have to rewind
Please.
because I've never. So that your cadavers were just heads, not whole bodies, just in a head.
Correct, correct. It's really funny because I had one
Like,
of
what does that look like? Is it like are they just flat on a table, or they've got a vice to keep them still? Like,
it's like they're on a pillow and you can move them. The great thing about it is that you could use them at 360 degrees. You could hold the weight of it. You could move them around. It's about 8 kilograms. And someone was somewhat not complaining, but just saying, "Oh, I feel as if I'm going to be a bit freaked out because it's a head." And I'm like, well, you don't need the rest of your body. And if you wanted to explore how the face works and how the head works, then the body will get in the way, and you practically have to be straddling the body to get to the head in all the dimensions. So yes, think of it like when you go massage, when you get a massage, you get these face donuts, right? So it's like the head sitting on that up
Yep.
to the neck
Oh.
area. And most
Do
of
they
them,
have hair?
some of them have hair, some of them have facial hair, some of them have hair on top of the head. Usually somewhat shorter, probably a buzz cut because of probably practicality. And our one was a little bit, as respectfully as possible, a little bit more juicy. Most of them are frozen, and some of them have like eyes. Do you know when like you've got dead fish and the eyes glaze over? Some of them had like glazed over eyes, and some of them had actually almost as if they were just slightly dry. And at first, it feels a little unusual, but
I'm not going to sleep for a week. Yeah, a little unusual. Uh huh.
I don't know. I think when you're in this situation, I think there's this kind of compliance thing as well, the whole Milgram thing, is that when everyone's doing it and everyone's expecting you to do so and everyone's going along with the process, it just is. We know what the intention is, and the intention, I would say, is relatively pure, which is they've donated their heads and their bodies, and we're just learning about them. So maybe because I've been exposed to it about 2 or 3 times in my dental degree and my aesthetics and oral surgery, I think it's maybe there's less of a story and narrative to it. You're not thinking how do they die? They're just here for us. So maybe the narrative is somewhat dislocated and disjointed. Um, yeah,
That's funny because I wouldn't think, how did they die? I'd wonder, like, what was their favorite food? What's the hardest they've ever laughed? Like, did they have siblings? What was their dog's name? Like, I wouldn't think about the death part. Like, but I wouldn't take a fucking selfie. No, you are a medical doctor, so this is not new information for you, but this is like shocking to me. Oh God, no. Anyway, okay. I'm hocus pocus focus. I'm still listening. Carry on.
I'm curious because you seem like a wise lady, and would I think that you've experienced death?
Sure.
And I personally haven't seen a real life human being die in front of me. The
No.
closest thing to that has been my one of my dogs having to put him down
Oh yeah.
3 or 4 years ago. And this lights out thing is, I'd say, interesting because it does feel lights out, and there's something that's away, and all of a sudden it's like it's a almost like a puppet. The hairy bits are still there, the body parts are still there, but they're not there anymore. That's my only real experience of death, apart from breaking bad news to mom and dad that their parents have passed away. But all of these feel very, very distant. It's not lights out in front of you. It's well, or even a better analogy, like a flame going out. It seems a bit morbid, but have you been exposed to that?
No, I mean I've put down dogs before, and that's traumatic and tragic. But a human head, I don't know. I don't know where. But what did you do with them? What were you learning?
We were injecting and thinking about which layers we think that we're injecting, depending on our techniques, whether it be cannula or needles, which we do day to day with patients to help rejuvenate, restore different fat pads. So I've got books that can give you a bit of a concept. So understanding the head and neck and how the bone and I've got a really good one. But we can think about it logically or academically, but physically peeling back the layers. For example, the temple has about 13 layers of different fat pads, different skin layers, tendons, ligaments, fascia, and knowing that every single one has a particular name and has a certain characteristic to it, a certain depth and feeling, and I'd like to say personality of how things are. It going through and understanding that it feels very precious because I feel that I live every day knowing that your skin is probably this thick at this part, and deep into that, you've got this bit of fat, and you've got a little bit of muscle that contracts that gives you a beautiful smile. And these are what's going on here that creates your expressions. I feel it gives me a gift of seeing people in as well as a live X-ray vision, as well as almost like an MRI vision as well. But on top of that, on a spiritual level, it's like we're all flesh and meat and bones, and we're pink inside. So it's a thing that brings all different colors, genders, sexualities, faiths, and beliefs into this sense of oneness. But as you know, I tend to bring it back to that because it gives me a lot of solace and it gives me a lot of grace and compassion. That at the end of the day, we're all kind of the same, just a slightly different shape, but
Sure. Different
we
earth
have the
suit.
same. Exactly, and the suits are quite similar as well. We've got similar muscles, more likely very
Of
much the
course.
same. Everything is so similar, more than you ever know, than you can imagine. I think life we're so easy to think we don't like them because they're very different to us. They behave differently. But at the end of the day, six human needs, as well as that, is that all of our bodily features, hair, lashes, eyes, bone, were kind of the same. So yes, body parts, things, proportions, bits of body parts, muscles. Yeah, but to see that in real life, humility, humbleness, and groundedness, and a sense of this too shall pass.
Wow. So the injections that you were putting, so say on a, through a temple or on a
Mm,
temple, in a temple, by a temple,
sure.
um, did it have an effect on a dead person? A dead head?
We're reflating it. So yes, some of it. So yes, we're being respectful, but like maybe halfway throughout the day, we're injecting it to see which injecting areas that we would inject with a patient and where it lands. Are we injecting, and are we thinking that it's going to a certain place, and is it directly going there? And halfway throughout the day, we're like, oh wow, they look more rejuvenated than when we first started because we age in the same way. We lose volume along anterior cheeks and lateral cheeks. We slide forward, we slide down. What I say to folk is that the, what do I say? Both the sun and gravity does not discriminate, and we're, we all go in the same direction. So restoring volume and where we need to be, that they look younger and younger. We couldn't bring them back to life, but they definitely look more rejuvenated and ironically more healthy because as we mature, we end up being more saggy or more depleted, more ironically, and more skeletal. It happens to us all.
Oh
Yes,
my
it
god.
does change, and it's fascinating and such an honor to be able to be gifted this opportunity to do so as well.
How did you transition from dentistry into this?
First story is I never wanted to be a dentist, artist, and psychologist, and then I graduated in 2012 and people will talk about facial aesthetics and all sorts. But when it comes to teeth, this is this part, and oh, I've got a skull somewhere. Oh, okay, we've got muscles and everything here. So
Gotcha.
we're focusing on here, but quite often that people are like, "What can you do with the rest of the face?" And we're like, "Oh, there's certainly something that we can do." This is the structure of the foundation, the smile. But if people are falling forward and falling down, They could have the most brilliant smile. They could have a smile of like the most handsome, most beautiful 25-year-old. But if their face looks droopy and sad or ill and unhealthy, there's the lack of congruency. And for me, it's about congruency. So that's one aspect. When you do really beautiful smiles, whether it be straightening up the smile or whitening up the smile, veneers, crowns, bonding, or any of the like, and people just feel as if they're really happy, but that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is that there are quite a lot of clinical aspects as well. So when people are grinding and clenching their teeth because of stress and anxiety, they're wearing away their teeth or they're chipping away at dental work, like veneers and crowns are literally chipping away and breaking off, then you could relax the muscles by using Botox because Botox is a muscle relaxant. Or what are the other aspects? When people are smiling and they've got a gummy smile, their lips fill up too much, and there's dental relevance to that, so you can relax these muscles to bring that down. So understanding the head and neck, the muscles, the face, the teeth, the structure, the brain, because we did that in the undergraduate as well, it felt as if I was geared and ready to work in the world of facial aesthetics. But I felt as if I was really geared and almost born for this because I've always wanted to be an artist and I've always wanted to be a psychologist. And what better than to understand and appreciate the connection of expressions, communication of self, than someone who's fascinated with psychology, artistry, and has a very, very comprehensive understanding of the head and neck. So that's my story.
That's amazing, Kev.
Maybe I was born for this.
Clearly, it is your calling. And even if you didn't want to be a dentist, it has served you well.
It certainly has. And rewriting that story, and I remember from our previous episode, we are talking about how I never wanted to be a dentist and mum and dad and pressures and all sorts. And we were talking about how we live in people's shadows or in we conform to the shape of what other people want for us. But I think once we set ourselves free, we can get the takings and learnings from that, and we can mold and take us to where we want to be. And with those learnings, it's even more rich than an A to B path. Once again, similar to that river analogy, it requires those splashes and those turbulence to get us there. Because how boring would it be for a river just to be straight, or life even?
Right. Wow. That's wild. That is like I'm just picturing you in this room learning all that. Anyway, that's a lot. Good on you, kid. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you. But aren't we all though? We all have a story, and
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and it's the whole. I mean, right? And we've talked about this before. When it feels like I don't want to do this. Why am I here? Why, we're feeling like we're dragging through the mud. And then as soon as we have the long view, it's like, that was a perfect setup for this, whatever this is. But that's crazy that, I don't know, the dentistry thing, the pleasing your parents thing, the traditional culture thing, I don't know, a lot of retired dentists at the age of 35. So the fact that you were able and confident enough to pivot is huge. That's huge.
thank you. For me, I felt as if I couldn't. I'm unsure if it's confidence, but I felt as if I couldn't live my life doing other things. And I think I shared with you, it's like I gave mum all the money because of gambling. I gave mum and dad the career, and I gave dad the kidney. So when? What am I waiting for?
Yeah. So do you have, not career plans, like that's a hard and fast question, but are you content doing the things you're doing right now over the long term? Or are you already like, what else? And where else? And who else? And when else?
I'll have a yes and no to that answer because I have thrown lots and lots of money, but according to American standards, probably not quite what you guys go into debt for, because education here in Scotland was free gratis. So once again, much gratitude. Is I've probably invested about 150, 200 grand over the last 10 years in studying, because I do think there's an element of fear of missing out that someone else does this, so I have to do this. Someone else does this, so I have to do this. I've done oral surgery courses, orthodontic courses, and it has enriched me. Psychology courses, a psychology degree, it has enriched me lots. But stepping into my curiosity with the world of neurodiversity, ADHD, autism, and all sorts, is that we think that the grass is always greener. And we must be so mindful of that because it almost never is. It's just selective. It's selective interpretations. And when I worked with a business coach for about 5 or 6 years, one of the biggest take homes is just in time learning. Something that is learnt that is not applied. I would say someone said something, but I would say that it's worse than not learning or knowing at all because you've got the information, you've got the knowledge, but you're not acting on it. You spent information, you spent time, you spent money to gain that stuff, and if you're not actioning, then you've wasted the investment of your time and energy and money.
Mm.
So what am I doing it for? Because I did actually look at, oh, maybe I could do counseling courses, maybe I can do maybe a coaching course. I am very inspired, and this is where YOLO Let's Go comes in. I do want to do something a little bit more broad and more impactful, following like 12 to 14 tenets of gratitude, of the service, of wabi sabi, the sense of imperfection, and indoctrinate and start this revolution because I'm sure Jesus didn't have a PhD in Christianity and
I'm
so on and
sure
so
of it.
forth. So, long story long is I think I'm going to invest 30-40% of my time into the transformation thing. I don't know if I'm going to call it, as I shared with you, coaching, because I feel as if it's a bit tainted. Everyone's using that. And incorporating it into House of Ikigai, because I do it one-to-one anyway, which is you don't need any treatments. I say that the first thing that I say when someone says, what do I think I need? I'm like, you don't need anything. You need oxygen, you need water, you need self-love, self-care. And the next point is I can give you my opinion. I'm a dentist, I'm a psychologist, I'm an artist. I can give you exploration. I'm getting the essence of who you are, and I can help you express that if we think that we're aligned. I think, as an example, I could use you for example. I see you as someone who's very approachable, very warm, very kind, very patient and compassionate. And what I say to that, Emily, is that the last thing we want is to have any treatments whereby you look frozen, unable to express, you look like gregarious and obnoxious, because that's the opposite of who you are. And after studying, and I had a moment, I think it was a couple of days ago, where someone had lips done. I don't know if you have much of that in your Florida or where you are.
Well, probably, but that's not my peer group. So,
But how about like when you go out for like dinner and people and the servers and all sorts?
so maybe when I go to giant events where I met you, there are participants that, yeah, the yes.
Okay, so for example, I got some food and with a couple of friends, and this person had lips done like that. And yes, it might be sexy, but what I love about it is when I see these things in the wild, I interpret a lot. I'm like, yes, it might be sexy, but when someone's just serving and in the context it's so out without smiling with your eyes or being sexy with your eyes, it just looks like you're obnoxious. So I just found it really fascinating how expressions are different according to context and relevance of that. Anyways, long story long, this is how I consult. And what I say is that we're just lining you. If you feel as if a certain mole or a certain line or wrinkle makes you less like you, my job is to gently neutralize expressions that no longer serve you and express who you truly are. Distractions that are not you, and we're just centering you back to self. That's my spiel. So I want to travel the world with that. I need to probably big up my social media because it feels as if that's a token. People see like um, a large number on your social media equals enough eyes, and then bigger brands would say, "Oh, I'll get and ship you over here, and you can do a speech or whatever." But I don't really mind. I'm just going to share my sharings, share the love to the world, and and then what will be will be.
I love this, Kevin.
What do you take
That's
from it? What do you take from it?
well, talk about alignment, right? You're aligning with who you are, your skill set, your passion, all that kind of stuff with the person you are becoming. Right? I mean, that's the way I think of it all the time. It's like it's only about becoming. Like who are you becoming because of this like passion? Who are you becoming because of this idea? Who are you becoming? Not what do you gain, what do you get, but it's really about who you are becoming. And so you're aligned with the helping, the healing, the service, the compassion, the engagement. I love this.
Thank you. And what I would like to share with you, though, is that I think alignment is only eased and supported with the environment. And not only is it the physical environment, but the environment of the people around you. As we said, it's the five closest people around us. But is that safety of being
I,
able to explore?
I partially agree with you, but can I tell you why I
Please,
absolutely don't?
please, listening.
Because we give, so I get passionate about it, so I'm going to sit on my hands.
Go ahead.
Is
All ears.
all the hands. Um, I think that's the problem with humanity is we give away our power to the people, places, things, circumstances around us instead of saying, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up? And so when you're saying, what was the exact line you just said about it's our environment? Like we are who we are because of our environment, or we're
I'm
shaped.
mindful. No, I think I said I think it's important to have an environment whereby it's supportive of that and allows you the safety to do so. Because one of the things I want to mention is you. You are a new input into my environment, whether it be my esoteric metaphorical environment. I feel I have you by my side in my life, in my realm, cheering me on, and it feels protective as in fuck it all. Like I've got those people, those key elements, those key people that want me to blossom, and that in itself is very wholesome.
Yes. So you're influenced by either the naysayers or the cheerleaders. But really, we want our lives to be unconditional. That when I wake up in the morning, I decide how do I want to feel? How am I showing up? Instead of what's going on around me. Oh, yeah, me too. But you have to have like an awareness and then step into it and own it because most people don't like to be the outlier. Me and you, I think we've always been a little bit quirky and not really looking for I wouldn't say that I'm not looking for approval because that's BS in a lifetime of being. But I think that, I don't know, we've talked, I would qualify you and me as quirky. Am I speaking out of turn?
Oh, I accept that and celebrate that within you and within me.
Yes. Yeah. So I think when you're quirky, you have more freedom to be doing your own thing. I get the Jim Rohn. We are the average of the five people with whom we spend the most time. You know, your political affiliation, your sense of humor, the car you drive, your level of education, creativity, all of that. Absolutely, I agree with that. And we're the only animals gifted with free will and choice. So if we are going to do the things that we love. It's because we've decided this is what I want. This is how I want to feel. This is how I want to engage. This is how I want to show up. And so, even though your environment can influence you, I think that's a lot of us giving away our power. Like, well, those are just the cards I was dealt. Well, that's just what happens in this area. Well, that's what we believe, and it's like, ooh, danger, danger.
I thank you for this because I think I wouldn't say like I like to compare it like a few steps back. That's what initially I had to say to that, but I'm not quite there yet. I having conversations with people, loved ones. There's still an element that I still want my friends to like me. I still want you
Sure.
to like me. I still want my mom and dad to like me. And I am in a bit of a dance, and I would love your a little bit of insight from your point of view because I intellectualize and know that I shouldn't allow people to affect me. But sometimes I really want to fish out as much as I can from someone to make sure, am I that good? Am I that really that worthy? I do blip. I just want to like double check, like, am I actually that good, Emily? Am I actually okay? Am I really that caring? Am I as caring as I think I am?
So
Wow,
wait,
get to
rewind, rewind, rewind. What would you do that your friends wouldn't like you or I wouldn't like you? Your parents, they're a different beast, right? Because don't let's not use them as an example because that's loaded. But what would you say or do that would violate a friendship?
ooh, that's a really good question. It's not about the violation. It's the what I would probably do in the past and probably still do now. As in, I wonder if sometimes I talk too much and then people think it's all about me and then it's the Kev show. And because the people around me encourage me and listen to me, I'm like, am I, I had this blip. I'm like, am I deserving to talk and talk so much and not actually listen to them more? I think I'm stepping back into transaction and am I giving them as much as I'm getting from them? Because conversations with you and recently other people, I'm like, I'm getting so much. It's like an avalanche of love. I'm like, I don't want to be that person who's a narcissist and takes all the everything and be selfish. So I don't know if it's because I'm open to receiving all the love and I'm getting so much from you and a few other people in my life recently. I'm like, shit, no, I don't want to be that selfish person. Please have some stuff. I really, no, please tell me that you're getting something out of this. It is so I wouldn't say violation, but it's just like, please tell me that I'm doing something good for you as well. Is where I'm
But
at.
what if I buy tickets to the Kev show? What if you're calling it like egocentric, oh, they're at the Kev show, that I'm talking too much, whatever, like all of that nonsensey talk. And what if I'm like, finally, like I'll have never learned anything while I'm talking, but I have when I'm listening. So what if you have these life experiences and perspectives that's so refreshing, I want you to keep talking.
What I say to that is you're so healing to my soul, and you allow.
But I'm not blowing sunshine. Like I really feel like, oh my gosh, like everything that we've been talking about in this entire call. It's like I've said this to you before, like I can't get enough of you because you have such a different perspective that I personally like the invitation to think differently. A lot of people don't. They just want to find like-minded people who reinforce the things they know, and I would prefer to have that like more creative, expansive conversation. So you might feel like, "Oh God, I'm talking too much," and it's the Kev show, and I'm like, "I want front row VIP seats to this Kev show you're selling." Potato, potato, you know.
I love this, and thank you. This is a journey that I've been traversing for many years, but highlighted recently because of understanding that love or perceiving love as transaction, and then wanting to love certain people like you and other people from a holistic friendship or from just a human being type of love. And I've been in this juxtaposition for quite heavily for a good probably month or two now. I'm like, oh, I really want, and please tell me that. And what's scary about it is that I end up beating myself up. Stop thinking that way and stop fishing, because once again, that's what a narcissist would do. Stop fishing because that's really unattractive and that's very insecure. So I feel like I'm craving and wanting some validation, or just, if anything, I'm not even validation. It's more like calibration. And maybe some people are not as expressive. Not you. I love you in your beautiful expressions. You articulate in such a comical and innocent, as well as a flavoursome. It's very tasty. What you got, I'll eat it all up, and it's like nom nom nom.
Flavoursome. I love that. That's
So
funny.
those are my musings. It's very, very less mindful, more musings just there.
I love it. So anyway, I would just encourage you. I'm inviting you to think differently about the Kev show. I'm inviting you to own that like enthusiasm and just keep talking, because if you're in that space where you're trying to communicate something specific, go for it, instead of the itty bitty shitty committee being like, "Oh, I'm totally dominating conversation right now. I should stop talking." Like,
My question then, to help me calibrate, that compared to a narcissist who keeps on talking about themselves, how does one compare that? How does the narcissist know? And well, a narcissist doesn't. I don't know. Like how? I'm supposed to be the psychologist.
well, you know, a narcissist has deep self-hate.
Hmm.
I mean, there's not self-loathing. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't compare yourself at all on any level. I would, and I know that you talk about, comparison is the thief of joy, but we also need a set point to compare to give us context.
Hmm.
And so both can be true. And what if you're just authentically you?
Thank you. This is exactly what I needed in my life, and I wanted to hear about you and just get a little bit of Emily. And I feel that I don't feel I just know that I've got more of me because of this. So I thank you very, very deeply and honestly.
Amen. Well, it's funny. I went out to dinner with a girlfriend last night, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to tell you, Emily, I'm a little embarrassed sometimes when we part ways because I just feel like I've dominated conversation with absolute nonsense." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No." Like I love people. I love people's stories. I love people's perspectives. And so I genuinely wanted to know what was going on in her world. And it was, I don't want to say disheartening because that sounds accusatory, but it was disheartening to think that she wasn't just like confidently sharing, but instead had this awareness like, pump the brakes. I'm talking to, like, no. It I don't know. We're too consumed by other people's opinions. I'm not for everyone. I am super clear about that. Like, I last week I led a 5-day challenge, and I said that right out of the gate. Like, you're either gonna love this week or, I mean, the content is one thing, the community is one thing, but if you don't like me, like, I am not for everyone, and I spent way too much of my life trying to be for everyone, and I'm not anymore. So, carry on then.
How do you then, if someone is talking and the energy's not quite right, just so I know what the signs are as well, what would you do to essentially let them know that I'm zoned out, I'm checked out, I'm done? What are the signs? What's the signal?
It was really nice connecting with you today. Or something.
I
I'm
love you.
glad to hear all of that is working out for you. That is fantastic. So I'm just gonna go brush my teeth. Yeah. I don't know. To me, so one of the things, this is a bit of a tangent, but when I see people at the supermarket or out into town, it doesn't matter. When I see somebody I know, Zero times will I say, "How are you?"
Mm.
Zero. That is a question. And if I'm going to ask you a question, I'm going to stop and listen for a response. I don't want to start a conversation. Instead, I'll make a statement. It's good to see you today. And so it's the same thing with like when you're ending a conversation, you just make a statement. You don't ask a clarifying question or, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I've got some haters in my life and I can feel it. I mean, you're sensitive to human energy. You can feel it when people are like, "Oh my word, I'd rather stand in traffic than talk to this dude."
Sure. And no, I'm totally down for it. I totally get it. I
Yes. I'm here, but you're frozen. Speaking of how do you get out of a conversation? You asshole. Was that like a precursor to what is just happening right now? I like you put a little exclamation point on it. Like, if we get cut off, bon voyage, motherfucker. Oh, it's so good. Amen. Thank you. You're frozen. You know what though I would love to do is to take a screenshot when both of us are live. I mean, I can see me is live and moving and you are frozen solid apparently winking at me, which is dead sexy, Kev. You're frozen in a wink. But anyway, I'd love to take a screenshot and post this and share how we met and why we stay in touch. But I can't see you. That's not a flattering. I would not tag whatever I'm looking at right now, by the way. Oh boy. Should we log off then? Yep. You're gone. Nothing happening here. I'm gonna love you and leave you.
Everyone knows Bitcoin is the largest cryptocurrency. But did you know that Ethereum has the largest ecosystem? It hosts and secures hundreds of billions of dollars in value via its tokens and protocols. And this is why dozens of cryptos have chosen to leverage Ethereum's virtual machine for smart contracts. And these so-called Ethereum killers were some of the top performing cryptos in the last cycle as a result. This time around, there is a new cohort of competitors that have taken Ethereum's technology to the next level. And one of them is Say. And this begs the question if it will also see the same eye-popping returns. Today, we find the answer. Stay tuned. I'll start by saying that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's purely educational content intended to inform you about Say. And I'll also note that some other members of Team Coin Bureau hold Say as part of their personal crypto portfolios. But rest assured that this will not affect the objectivity of today's altcoin review in any way. And if you happen to be curious about which cryptos we hold and which ones we're personally considering, you can find out by joining the Coin Bureau Club. Members also get access to weekly altcoin reviews, daily altcoin alpha, and real-time altcoin analysis and discussion in our Discord. The link will be down in the description. That said, we first reviewed Say for our Coin Bureau Club members in late December last year when its price was starting to go parabolic. We cautioned that Say was likely to see more pain before it would see more gains, and in retrospect, that prediction was spot on. The pain came, and the gain, well, it could be next. But we'll come back to that a bit later. First, let's start with a quick recap. Say was founded in early 2022 by Jeff Feng and Jayendra, aka Jay Jog. Jeff used to be an investment banker at Goldman Sachs and worked at a crypto VC firm before founding Say. As for Jay, he spent most of his career prior to Say working at Robinhood as a software engineer. Jay was inspired to create Say after the GameStop saga in 2021, which you can look up in your own time. Say was originally created to be a decentralized competitor to centralized stock exchanges like the Nasdaq. And if this sounds familiar, well, that's because it's the same reason why Solana was originally created. Just like Solana, though, Say evolved to become a general-purpose blockchain which caters to multiple use cases. The difference is that Say decided to leverage the EVM for its smart contracts. And this was because it would make it easier for Say to gain users, developers, and liquidity, as I noted in the intro. As also noted in the intro, though, there are dozens of these EVM-based Ethereum killers. So what makes Say different? The answer is threefold. First, Say uses a Cosmos-based blockchain. For context, Cosmos-based chains are the most battle-tested proof-of-stake blockchains around. Say chose to use Cosmos's technology, or rather the Tendermint consensus, because it would decrease the risk of stuff like frequent outages that we've seen on other fast blockchains like Solana. And if you've been keeping up with our Ethereum updates, you'll know that even it has experienced issues since the merge. The difference between Say and other Cosmos-based chains is the second thing that makes Say unique. And that's its optimization of Tendermint, called the Twin Turbo Consensus. And this involves a combination of compressing transactions so that blocks are propagated faster, and of course assuming that these blocks are valid. The third thing that makes Say stand is probably the most significant, and that's the fact that it managed to parallelize the EVM. And as the term suggests, this makes it possible for Say to process smart contract transactions in parallel. Although Say's mainnet launched back in August 2023, its parallelized EVM didn't launch until July this year, and that's basically why Say's price has been rallying recently. Now, in case it wasn't clear enough, Say's three innovations are really fast. Its website notes that it has a block time of just 380 milliseconds and can process over 12.5 thousand transactions per second. And more importantly, transactions on Say are final in a single block, which you'll recall is 380 milliseconds. While Say is technically the first crypto to launch a truly parallelized EVM, it won't be the last. Another crypto project called Monad will be launching its parallelized EVM chain later this year. And Monad's $225 million raise in April seems to have hyped up the parallelization narrative and pumped Say's price as a result. To put things into perspective here, Say raised just $45 million in total across various ICOs in 2022 and 2023, but we'll come back to that a bit later. In the meantime, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to smash that like button to let us know, and subscribe to the channel and ping the notification bell as well so you don't miss the next video. Now, even though it's been 10 months since we first covered Say, not that much has happened since then. The biggest news in January was the emergence of the Super Saiyan-themed meme coins. For reference, Super Saiyan is something that's part of the popular Dragon Ball manga and TV series. The reason why this news is worth pointing out is that prior to the Saiyan meme, Say didn't really have something that made it stick out from the other Ethereum killers, including Monad. Jay revealed in an interview in February that this helped Say grow its community, and it's likely to continue helping. Now, in March, Grayscale announced that it had added Say to its Dynamic Income Fund, or GDIF, and as the name suggests, the fund aims to earn yields on staked cryptocurrencies. It's unclear how much of the GDIF is allocated to Say, but it's clear that it's a lot, and that seems to be because it's included in the others box. In case you're wondering, Say staking rewards are currently around 5% per year for validators and delegators with a 21-day lockup period. And validators must stake or be delegated enough Say to make it into the top 39 to become a part of the validator set. And thankfully, there's no minimum Say stake as a delegator. Anyways, in April, Say announced a $10 million creator fund with Gitcoin, an Ethereum-focused donation platform for crypto projects. The Say Gitcoin fund launched in June, encouraging development on Say, obviously. And I'll quickly note that Jay also revealed that Say seems to be short on developers. Now, in May, NFT marketplace OpenSea added support for Say shortly after the initial launch of its parallelized EVM, whose rollout had begun earlier in the month. And this is interesting because OpenSea doesn't support that many chains, so it's quite selective. So its selection of Say could therefore be a kind of a bullish sign. On that note, there were more bullish signs for Say in June. Interoperability Protocol Layer 0 also announced that it had integrated Say, and crypto indexing protocol, the Graph, with crypto-friendly bank Revolut. And in July, these bullish signs turned into bullish catalysts. Say completed the launch of its parallelized EVM with crypto analytics platform Dune, adding support for its chain. And Say also announced a $50 million ecosystem fund in Japan that would focus on GameFi, SocialFi, and other such use cases for Say. However, it wasn't until August that these bullish catalysts started affecting Say's price. And that's because Say was missing one of the key ingredients, liquidity, aka money. The first liquidity boost came with the addition of USDT and USDT via Stargate Finance, and the second came with market makers like GSR getting involved. The third boost to liquidity was the biggest, and that was Binance adding support for Say's parallelized EVM network. The practical effect of this is that it makes it easy for Binance's 200 million users to easily move funds in and out of Say the same way they can with other EVM chains, like a de facto bridge. It should come as no surprise then that Say hit over $200 million of total value locked in its DeFi protocols. What is surprising though is that lots of Say's TVL could soon come from
phototherapy.
Hello? I think so. Upload or download?